Thank you, Guy, for those words of introduction. I first would like to welcome everyone, especially our visitors from outside of the borders of our country. I'm hoping that by the end of the conference tomorrow, you really will find the engagement to have been quite useful and quite helpful. I just would like to say, because I'm aware that we're running behind time already, so I will try and hurry myself up so that we can get down to the real business of hearing from our esteemed panel, because that's who we've come to engage with this morning, not so much myself as chair. But I think that I should say that this conference could not have come at a more opportune time on our continent, where on the one hand, access to information is yet to be a reality, and in other parts of the continent where there is access, that access is in many instances under threat. So that while in some parts of our continent, the door to access has yet to be opened. In other parts of the continent, such as in South Africa, the danger actually is that the door may actually begin to close again. So I think that the conference has come at an opportune time for us to begin to engage, the whole issue, around access to information. Even as I've just said, in South Africa, in a way, we've got a reputedly one of the most liberal constitutions, which theoretically should be guaranteeing access. The tension does exist, and sometimes it does increase between those who are seeking to reduce access and control it, and those who are wanting to maintain and increase access to information. I think that by now most of you will be aware of the engagement, if I may call it that has been happening in our country between us in the media, civil society on the one hand, and the legislators on the other, who are seeming to be inclined to move in the opposite direction to what we, most of us believe the Constitution wants us to be moving in. And that is a development that is of concern to all of us in the media, whether we're working in the public on the public platforms such as the SABC or on the privately owned platforms. It is a concern to all media workers, to all journalists, and to all editors. Of course, the issue is that the whole question of access to information, it is not wanting to gain access for the sake of gaining access. Gaining access has to be linked to the ability to use that information. And I think that the challenge really is what do you do with the information when you have got it? In many instances, if you look at again, talking about our situation in South Africa, and I think that we could apply in other environments as well. The question is that while we are relatively free to access information, I think that there are enormous pressures that come with that, where people are trying by other means, unconventional, to put pressure, on the possessors of that information so accessed, to not use it or to use it in a particular way, that suits the different stakeholders. Often actually have got their own, self-serving interests to advance. I would like to start by introducing our panel this morning. We have got, to start with, Diana Senghor. Diana is the Executive Director of the Panels Institute, West Africa, based in Dakar, overseeing its contribution to democratizing communication in the region via media law reform policies, capacity building for media practitioners, and support for media content production and dissemination. Diana holds a doctorate in philosophy from the Sorbonne in Paris. Diana? It's the lady sitting in. No, just so people can see you and know who I'm talking about. And then we have got Henry Maynard. Thanks, Henry. Henry is the Director of Article 19 East Africa. He leads programs on the right to information, freedom of expression, and press freedom in 10 countries. He previously worked as the Deputy Director of the Legal Resource Foundation in Kenya. Our next panelist is Malcolm Joseph. Malcolm is the Executive Director, Center for Media Studies and Peace Building. He served as the Chair of the Liberian Freedom of Information Coalition and has since 2004 been the leader of Liberia FIO Freedom of Information process, an initiative that has lobbied for the passage of Freedom of Information law and for the implementation of transparency provisions of other laws in Liberia. Then we've got Murray Hunter. He is the national coordinator of the Right to Know campaign. He studied journalism and media studies at the University of Cape Town, not far from where we're sitting, and has an MA in anthropology from the University of London. Welcome, Murray. The next panelist I'd like to introduce is Rosemary Okello Olali. Rosemary is the Director of Africa Women and Child Feature Service, a media NGO focusing on the development of communication in Africa. Rosemary is a communication specialist and expert on media, gender, and development communication, and is also secretary to the Kenya Editors Guild, as well as treasurer of the African Editors Forum, which I think most of us here would have interacted with. I think we're familiar with that body. I also would like to introduce Said Islami, the gentleman extreme left, my left. He is the Executive Director of the Center for Media Freedom in the Middle East and North Africa, which is an NGO based in Casablanca in Morocco. The CMF was instrumental in pushing for the introduction of access to information in the new Moroccan Constitution of 1st July 2011, and is still fighting for the adoption of democratic access to information law in Morocco. And lastly, I'd like to introduce Chobi Mendel. Chobi is the chair of the Freedom of Information Advocates Network, and he also works as the executive director of the Center for Law and Democracy, a Canadian-based international human rights NGO that focuses on providing legal expertise regarding foundational rights for democracy. And he has worked a lot with the SOS campaign in South Africa, which a lot of us interact a lot with, particularly in relation to the place where I live at the cities. Those then are our panelists. For this morning. I just would like, from a small housekeeping matter, we will try and push and finish. I see that we're now at 9:25, but we will try and finish as soon after 10:30 as is possible, depending on how long our panelists speak. I gather we've got some very fiery people on the panel, so we will see how we go with the time from that point of view. The way we will conduct the session this morning is that I will give each of our panelists 10 minutes to give us their thoughts. I think the good thing about the panelists is that they cover a whole geographic spread. You know, we've got people who, someone like Said, for example, has worked in the north. He's worked in Morocco and in other places, which hopefully will give us the flavor of what's happening in the north of our continent. We've got panelists who are coming from the west of the continent, and panelists from the east, and we've got panelists from the south. So I'm hoping that by the end of the session we will get a very good idea of what progress is being made, in the struggle to gain information, on our continent. At this point, I shall ask. I think let us start with Diana, because I made her stand earlier, and then I made her sit down again. Diana, if you're happy, would you like to kick the ball rolling for us, please?